So welcome to GS 182, which is your introductory biology course of the pre-health program here at Centennial. My name is Vincent Wong, and I will be teaching the first 6 weeks of the course. And then Professor Maren Haeri will take over at week 7, and he will teach you the remaining of the course. You will notice that's going to be the case for most of your courses in the summer, that it's going to be co-teach by 2 different teachers. So before we get started, let me just show you the kind of stuff that you need to know, right, for the course, especially the course homepage, where you can find information, the structure of the course, how we do the labs, and so on and so forth. If you have any questions during the class, please, you can just unmute and ask the question. You can raise your hand using the Zoom feature, or if you feel more comfortable typing the question in the chat box, that is going to be okay as well. So this is the course homepage, and I already sent out an email, last week. Some of you received it twice, because some people joined late, right? I did. Some of you, I think, register on Friday, so just in case you didn't get the email, I'd send it out again. But it contains the same kind of information that is being posted here. So every week I'm gonna post news item on eCentennial that tells you what to expect for that week, and then I'm gonna post important information such as upcoming quizzes, how many questions, and the time limit and all that stuff. Everything will be communicated through the course homepage. And if there's any kind of changes to the class schedule and so on and so forth, I will be emailing you through your Centennial email account. So if you haven't already have a chance to set up your email account, please do that. It is the pioneer way of communication, in this course and at the college for the most part. So this is going to be completely online courses. You do not have to come to the campus. Even the labs are going to be done virtually, and we'll explain how that's going to be done later on. So every week we'll meet 2 times, Monday and Wednesday on 8:30 a.m. To roughly 10:20. 10:20 is the official end of class, but we'll see. Sometimes we might have to go a little bit over, and sometimes we might end early, depending on the topic, and depending on the level of engagement we get. Sometimes you guys have more questions on certain topics, then we might go over a little bit. So you guys are all here because you saw the email, I presume, and this is going to be the Zoom link that we'll be using for my half of the course. Okay, when Miran takes over, he's going to probably give you a different meeting link, and then you will just follow his set of instruction. We do try to keep the things as consistent as possible, like the format of the test and so on and so forth. But different teachers do have different preferences and different styles. So when he does take over, I'm sure he will let you know what to expect. As far as my half of the course goes, everything is already posted on eCentennial, and you can just go to content, and you can see all my lectures here, right? So in lecture 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, those are the ones that I'll be teaching you, and then 6 to 10, that's Miran. He's gonna teach you those things. The course is gonna be separated into 2 halves. Let me write this down for you in case you need to see it written out. 2 halves of the course. All right, we have Unit 1. Which is lecture 1 to lecture 5. Okay, so within this unit, we are going to have 2 quizzes, quiz 1 and quiz 2, and you're going to have a lab 1, as well as test number 1. So the quizzes themselves are going to be 10% each. Lab is going to be 10% as well. and then the test is going to be 20%. Okay, so that works out to be 50% of your final grade, right? And then you will have the Unit 2. Unit 2 is going to be lecture 6 to lecture 10, which will be the same thing, right? Quiz 3, quiz 4, lab 2, and test number 2, and then it's going to be 10%, 10%, 10%, and then 20% as well. So that makes up, you know, the 100% of your course. Now, in terms of the, you know, what each quizzes cover, I'll let you know when we get closer to the actual quiz day. But typically, the quiz would cover like 2 lectures. So, you know, quiz 1 will be lecture 1 and 2. Quiz 2 will be lecture 3 and 4. And then, you know, the test will be lecture 1 to 5. Now, it is non-cumulative, which means the test that whatever you get tested on in the first half, like my first half of the course will be independent of Miran's. Okay, so when he does take over, he will only be testing you on the things that he teaches. Okay, so that way you don't, you know, it's not going to be too overwhelming, right? There's no final cumulative exam. My program is not really working here. Let me just restart it. Meanwhile, do you guys have any question for me about the you know, evaluations and that kind of stuff?
Sorry, do we get handed books or is it online?
Yeah. So I'm gonna get to the books in a second. Just hold on. And Takeri, I see you are unmuted as well. You have a
Yeah, I have a question. Say if we can't make it for class, how many classes are we allowed to miss? Because like life happens, like we have an emergency.
Yeah, I get it, right. So the attendance is not mandatory. Like, you know, if you guys have other you know, like other stuff, that other commitments that you have, like jobs or whatever, that's fine. Like I said, all the these live Zoom meetings, they're going to be recorded, and it's going to be posted online. What's very important though is you know, you take the time to watch the recording, because you know, I have had students who just try to, you know, go through the course without coming to class and without watching the recordings and stuff like that, and they generally perform quite poorly. And also another thing that you have to pay attention to is the test dates. Okay, so these quizzes, the way we set it up for my class, okay, this is going to be different for, you know, chemistry and math and other subjects you take, but for biology, I made it available from 6 a.m. To 11:59 p.m. Okay, so that's going to be available for 1 day only. So whenever quiz 1 happens, okay, say in 2 weeks on the Wednesday or something, right? That's the only time you're going to be able to access the quiz. And so, you know, you have to make sure that you are available on that day to take the assessment. But in terms of, you know, coming to class, it's great that you come to class. It's important because I teach the lesson, and we're going to have, you know, interaction. I'm going to ask you poll questions. Some of those questions are going to show up on the quiz, right? So you do want to participate a little bit, but you know, like you said, sometimes if you miss a class or whatever, that's fine. Right? You can watch the recordings later. Does anyone else have any other questions regarding the evaluation piece here before I move on? Okay, fantastic. Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I saw someone unmute.
I just want to ask if you're taking any like attendance, or do we have to log in with the specific?
No. Yeah, no, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not taking attendance at all. Yeah. So,
okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what's on the?
Excuse me. What
Sure.
about the assignments?
There's no. There are 2 labs. Those are going to be the assignment, I guess that's what you're referring to. And the labs, which we'll go into more details later, basically involves you either watching a demo or using an interactive simulation, like an app, and then you're going to be answering some questions. Then you will be submitting it. But you know, in terms of how you're going to submit the assignments and stuff like that, we'll get to it as we approach the submission day. Is that your question?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Okay, great. Now you might wonder, right, like what's on the quiz? How are we going to do the quizzes? Generally, the quiz are going to have several types of questions. We're going to have our standard multiple choice questions. Those are like, you know, 1 mark each. Okay, and it's just typical multiple choice question that you would see, and the majority of the quiz and tests will be multiple choice questions. Now we have a fairly big bank of questions, so everybody's gonna have different questions. Okay, like the questions that you get might be different from your classmates because we want to randomize the process, so people are not sharing questions and that kind of thing, right? Just to keep it fair. And then we have some application questions, which are also in the form of multiple choice. They are also 1 mark each. So these are not just factual questions. Okay, these are not just things that you can look up the answer on Google or whatever. These questions actually requires you to apply things that you learn in class. Maybe in a scenario type of questions, and you really have to think about it. So you will have some of those. And then there will also be what we call multi-select questions. Okay, so these are like 2 marks each, right? They involve you selecting more than one correct answers. Okay, so it'll be something like, which of the following statements are true? And then I'll give you like 5 things, and then you have to choose all the correct ones. Okay. If you choose extra ones, right? Like if you choose additional answers that are not correct, marks will be deducted. Yeah, so those tends to be a little bit harder, and you will have a couple of those on the quiz and on the test. And then there will also be some short answer questions. Okay, these ones depends, like 3 to 4 marks, right, depending on what the questions are, and you actually have to type out the response for these ones. So those are going to be the format of the assessment. When we get closer to the assessment day, I will tell you exactly how many multiple choice to expect, how many multi-select, and how many short answer questions. Is that okay? Any questions? Okay, great. And there are some practice quizzes that you can try right online. I'll get to that in a second. So let's go back to the homepage here. Under each lecture, right, lecture 1 to 5, again, those are the ones that I'll be teaching you. You will see the PowerPoint presentation. That's just the PowerPoint file. Okay, if you don't want to print them out, if you just want to type notes directly in the PowerPoint, that's the file to go to. There is the PDF file, which is 3 slides per page. This is what most students prefer. Okay, like if you're going to print the notes out, this will save you paper, so you don't have to print out like all 75 slides, right? Just like 3 slides per page, and then there's some space here for you to take notes. I mean, if you don't have a printer, maybe go to the campus once or twice just to print them all out. It's probably cheaper, right, than doing it at the I don't know, Staples or something. There is a study guide which you also need. The study guide looks something like this, and we will be using the study guide during class. Okay, so when we talk about certain concepts, sometimes I switch back and forth between the study guide and the notes. And we'll fill this in as we go. And whatever we don't fill in class, you will have to do it on your own. And I will post the answers to the study guides, towards the end of the week as well. So make sure you have that ready during class. As I said, we're going to be referring to it quite often. There are some study resources here. Okay, so there are no textbooks. Someone asked me about books earlier. There's no textbook in this course. Not a physical one that you need to buy. That's what I mean. But in each of the lecture, there will be a link, right, to some supplementary reading. So if you click on that, it will take you to like an open source textbook. Okay. So each link will take you to the section that's relevant to that lecture. So for lecture 1, this is the relevant section, right? So we're gonna be talking about the process of science today. We're going to talk about inductive reasoning, scientific method, all that stuff, right? We'll be learning all those things. Typically speaking, the PowerPoint slides along with the study guides are pretty comprehensive already. Okay, so like you don't really need to read the textbook, but some people like to, get more background information, right? They want to have a more comprehensive view on the topics, and they feel better having a textbook. And that's the purpose of the textbook. Okay, I'm not going to be testing you on the textbook reading. All the questions on the quizzes and on the tests are based on the lecture notes, the PowerPoint lecture notes, as well as the study guides that we'll be using. Okay, any additional information that you see in the textbook, you are not going to be responsible for. Okay, so I just want to make that clear. The textbook is for reference purpose only. Okay. Outdoor studying resources. Right? People like to find stuff on YouTube and watch them. But sometimes they find the wrong kind of video, and then they go into way more details than what we do. So instead of you finding stuff on your own, I've collected a bunch of videos from different places online and put them all in one place. Okay, so these are videos that I found to be relevant to what we're doing, and it just saves you some time from having to look them up yourselves. So this is available again under study resources, and there is the video resource right there. There's a self quiz. You can do them as many times as you want. I saw someone actually tried it a couple times already, which is good, I guess. And then, there's some crosswords here. Since we'll be learning a lot of vocabularies in the course, doing these crosswords might help you. So for example, the ability to maintain a stable internal environment despite environmental changes. Does anybody know what that term might be? I mean, we haven't learned it yet, but just wondering if anybody would know. Yeah, Haran said homeostasis. That would be correct, right? So you would type the word homeostasis here, right? Or if you don't know, you can click solve, and then it will tell you what it is, right? Okay, so it's a good way to practice your vocabulary. It's kind of like a virtual what do you call those things? Like those studying cards, right? That you have. So those are the video resources. Now, when you go to lecture 2, you're going to see the same thing, right? You're going to see your lecture notes. You're going to see the study resources. So it's the same kind of format for all 5 of the lectures. All right. So any questions about where to find things and what you need to print for class before we move on?
Do we need to print something before the next class?
Yes, so for next class, right, you will be printing the lecture 2 notes, right? You either use the PowerPoint slides, right, on your computer, or you can print the 3 slides per page notes, right? Okay, along with the study guide. Okay, so what are we doing every week? If you go back to the home page, actually, you know what? If you go to content, and again, right, for those of you joining it late, this whole thing is recorded. So if you miss anything, you can watch it later. You can go to useful information. All right, so there is the course outline, and then there's the weekly schedule. Okay, so these two are, I think, a little bit different. Okay, so let me explain to you. The course outline is an official document. It's kind of like a contract between you and the college that tells you what you will be learning in this course, and it's like a legal document that you can use when let's say you decided not to stay at Centennial, right? Let's say you would go to another college, and then they also have a biology course, and you can be like, hey, but I already took it at Centennial, right? And you can show them this course outline, right? And then they will decide whether the course are the same or similar enough that you will be exempt from it, right? So that's one reason why you would want to keep a copy of this course outline. Okay. So it tells you, the topics that we'll be learning and so on and so forth. Now, I want to make this very clear. Even though, there is a quiz day here, like, you're supposed to have the quiz on week 3 and stuff like that. We actually don't follow the course outline here in terms of when the evaluations are happening, okay? For practical purposes, you can keep the course outline for your reference. We will still do everything that's on the course outline, but for, ease of use and for practical purposes, I've created the weekly schedule. Okay, so that's the one you want to print, and that's the one we are going to be following for the course. Okay, so you click on the weekly schedule, and it tells you when things are happening. Okay, so today is week 1, May 8th. We'll be doing the scientific method, okay, and we will continue to do it on Wednesday, right, and so on and so forth. Now, next week, Wednesday, I have something else that I need to attend to. So you will be doing asynchronous learning. I'll post a recording of the lesson that you are supposed to be learning, and you'll be watching that on your own. But for the most part, right, everything else we are going to be meeting in a Zoom meet like this. Okay, so it tells you when the quiz is going to be. First quiz is going to happen on May 24th, right? You want to mark that down on your calendar. Second quiz is June 5th, and then you're going to have the test on June 14th. Okay, and that's it for my half of the course. Okay, you might be wondering, where is the lab, right? So actually, when Miran takes over, that's the second professor. When he takes over, he will be doing the lab. That's the first thing that he'll be doing with you. It's just that I wasn't able to fit the lab in. Like if I do the lab in week 6, then I won't be able to oversee the test. And I wanted to be there to oversee the test because it's material that I taught you. In case you have any questions, like I will be there to answer them, right? So that's the first half of the course. When again Miran takes over, he will post the second half. Okay, so that's my email address. That's the best way to contact me, by the way, if you have any questions or concerns, right? If you're sick and you missed the quiz or missed the test, you want to let me know. Okay, I reply email fairly quickly. Yeah, if you do not hear back from me for more than a day, that means I did not get your email. Okay, maybe there's a glitch in the system, but sometimes people just send it to the wrong person. Okay, there's more than one Vincent Wong apparently in the college, and sometimes it gets the wrong person. So make sure you just send me an email again if you don't hear back from me for more than one day. Okay. Shabiha asks, how many questions will we answer for quiz 1? I'll let you know when we get closer to it. Like I don't have the numbers now, but usually I want to say like maybe 20 to 25 questions. Okay, and you will have about 40 minutes to do it. Like I said, I'll give you more information when we get closer to the quiz day. Okay, I think that's everything I wanted to tell you about the course. Do you guys have anything else you want to ask before we start the lesson? Anything at all? Well, if you think of anything else, please just leave it in the chat box, or you can email me. I'm a pretty laid back person, so if you need anything at all, do not hesitate to reach out. I'm here to help you. To do your best. I know online environment might not be ideal for some of you, but I try to make it as close to an in-person experience as possible for you.
Good morning, sir.
Morning, Kushana.
I probably missed it because my
That's
Zoom
okay.
wasn't working. But for the quizzes, right? So like how will we do it? Is it
Online? Yeah, everything's gonna be online. Yeah. So I'll show you where to access it later on. Just briefly, if you click on assessment, let me just switch it to a student view here. If you click on assessment and you click on quizzes, right? These are the cell quiz that you can try. You can do them as practice. You can do it as many times as you want. They do not they're not worth any marks. And then And then you will see these are the upcoming ones, right? Okay, quiz number 1, May 24th, quiz number 2, June 5th, right? You can click on them, but you won't be able to start them until the day of the quiz, right? Like I said, it will be available from 6 a.m. to basically midnight on that day, and you will have to complete it, during that time frame. But once you, this is very important, right? I'm going to tell you again later, but once you start the quiz, let's say the quiz is time limit is 40 minutes, right? Once you start the quiz, the timer does not stop. Okay, so some mistake people make is they enter the quiz at 8 a.m. They do a few questions and they're like, this is way harder than I thought. Okay, maybe I'll study more and come back to it. And then they try to access it again like at 8 p.m. and found out they got locked out, right? Because even if you close your browser, the timer does not stop. Okay, so you can do the quiz. You can start the quiz anytime between 6 a.m. and 11:59. But once you start it, you will only have 40 minutes to complete them. Okay, so make sure you are mindful about that. Make sure you're in a quiet place where people are not going to interrupt you. Okay, sometimes we have situations where people lost internet connection, that kind of stuff, and that's okay, right? Like I said, you just email me, let me know, right? No need to panic. Okay, like I said, I'm a pretty reasonable person, right? So I'll just reset the quiz for you, and then you can start again or whatever. And besides, I'm able to track everybody's activity on the quiz. Like when you do the quiz, I can see exactly what you're doing. Like, are you just skipping through all the questions, right? Did you log out, log in? Everything is logged. It's like recorded, right, on the log sheet, right? So like, I can always go back and check. But like I said, I try not to be too harsh on anyone. If you run into trouble, just email me. Okay, it's not a problem though. All right, I think we are gonna get started with the lesson. Like I said, if you think of anything else, just type your question in the chat box, and let me know. All right, here we go. Okay. So first lesson is what we call scientific method. Okay, so in the scientific method, we will learn how science is conducted. Okay, and this is actually a very important lesson because it relates to your first lab. In your first lab, you will be investigating the effects of temperature on membrane permeability. Right, so you have to understand how experiments are being done in a scientifically sound way. Okay, like there are certain steps, certain procedures that we have to follow, right? And that's what this lesson is going to be about. My email is going to be on the first page of every PowerPoint slide. So in case you need to find me, again, that's the email. Okay. Sometimes people find my phone number. I don't know how they do it. Maybe find it on the college website or something. They find my phone number and they call me. Don't call me. Okay. Like I obviously I don't have the phone. I don't have the work phone with me at home. Like you will leave me voicemail and I'll probably never know about it. Okay. The quickest way to reach me is email. Okay. Sometimes I will reply you like instantaneously. All right. So please just contact me that way. All right, so this is introductory to biology, right? I don't know if you guys took biology before. Some of you, I imagine, are coming to Centennial straight from high school, and you might have had some experience in high school biology. That's great. Some of you might be out of school for a while, and you haven't taken biology for like 10-15 years. That's okay as well, right? I will assume nobody knows any biology. Okay, and I'm gonna go from a very basic level, right? Very introductory level, and try to explain it, as if you never heard it before. So starting with the question, what is biology? Now, by definition, biology is the scientific study of living things, right? Living things. And there are different branches of biology. Right? So we have what's called anatomy. Right? Anatomy is the study of body structure. Right? So what is the name of this organ? Oh, this is the heart. This is the liver. This is the stomach. Right? And then the different parts of the heart. Right? We have different chambers in the heart, and they actually have different names. So basically, anatomy is, you can think of it as, what is it called? What is it called? Okay, so the names of the different parts of the body, that's anatomy. And then there is physiology, which is the study of functions of structures in the body. So like, you have these flaps in the heart. What do we need the flaps for, right? What does it do, right? The liver, what's the function of the liver? So anatomy is what it's called, and physiology is, what does it do? Now, the notes that I scribble on the PowerPoint slides, there's no way for me to preserve them, okay? As soon as I exit the PowerPoint, they're gone for good. Okay, so you copy as much as you can. And, whatever you miss, you can watch the recordings for it later. Sometimes I would take notes on a different application, on the OneNote. Those I can post online afterwards, okay? So anatomy, physiology, or what is it called and what does it do? Actually, the next semester you'll be taking a course called Anatomy and Physiology, okay, which is continuation of Biology 1, but that one focuses on bodily structures, okay, body systems. I also teach that course, so maybe we will meet again in the fall. Who knows? There's a histology, which is the study of cells and tissues, right? So if you take some cells and then you put it on a cover slip, and then you look at it under the microscope, there are various things you can identify, right? By looking at the histology of the tissue, right? You can see if the tissue is cancerous, for example. If you look at the blood under the microscope, the histology of blood, you can see if certain people are having particular kind of infections, right? Because certain types of blood cells will be elevated in those cases. So this here is a picture of the kidney, okay? And you'll be learning about that next semester. Genetics is the study of heredity, right? That's another branch of biology, right? We're going to spend quite a bit of time talking about genetics in the second half. Right? You have like 2 classes dedicated to 2 lectures actually dedicated to genetics. Okay, so we'll look at situations like these. If the mother has blue eyes and the father has brown eyes, what's the probability that their kids are going to have brown eyes? Okay, so that's an example of genetics. We will learn about genetic engineering. Okay, what if we take a gene from one organism and then put it in another organisms, right? We create what these things called the genetically modified organisms, right? So what's the ramification of that, right? How do we tweak it in a way that will benefit humans, right? Maybe we'll be able to grow crops that are more frost resistant. Okay, maybe we will be able to engineer bacteria that can produce insulin for us. So these are some different branches of biology, right? So these 3 things, the anatomy, physiology, and a little bit of histology, you will learn mostly next semester. Genetics, you will learn second half of the course, okay? But for the first half of the course, we'll be focusing on cell biology, okay? Molecular biology, right? What's going on in a cell, right? How do the molecules interact, things like that. Again, just stop me anytime, okay? If you have any questions or if you want me to slow down or repeat things, it's not a problem at all. So the definition, right, that we had, like, what is biology? Right? Biology is a scientific study of living things, right? Then the next logical question to ask is, what are living things, right? So it's, it's easy for us to classify whether something is living or non-living. Like, a zebra is a living thing, and a chair, a ball, a doll, these are non-living things, right? But sometimes it's not so clear cut, okay? And when it comes to something like a virus, even scientists, they have been debating for like centuries whether to consider a virus as a living thing or a non-living thing. Now, without looking for, if you have the PowerPoint slides in front of you, like without going forward in the slides, can anyone tell me some characteristics that are shared by living things and not by non-living things? Like, what are some common features that are shared by living things. Yeah, go ahead, please.
So living things, they can move, they can grow.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So, they can move, they can grow, right? Grow. Okay. But, a ball and the skateboard can move as well, right? Right. If we think about that. So, some things are kind of, shared by both, right? But, that's a good start. Yeah. Another one, please. Is it Takiri? I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing
Yeah, no, you got it. Produce energy.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Produces energy, right? Produces energy. Okay. But like a car engine also produces energy, right? Like I'm just
Yeah,
trying to, yeah.
and response to stimuli.
Right. Okay. So like they're able to respond to, the environment, right? We'll say for now.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Maybe just one more. It says Shumana.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
go.
they have blood. No
They
living-
have blood. Okay. So they have some kind of fluid in them that helps them, stay alive, I guess, right? That's maybe another way to put it. Yeah, that's very good. Okay. And someone said, Haran said, reproduction. Yeah, reproduction. Very good. Okay, so you guys all have a pretty good understanding of, how do you know if something is living or not, right? But what makes a virus so, strange and hard to place in one category or the other is that, a virus is able to grow, and they respond to the environment, and they're able to reproduce, but only if they are inside a host, right? So they have the potential. This is a virus again, in case you didn't know. So this is a virus. They have the potential to reproduce. Okay, although a more accurate word is replicate. Okay? They have the potential to make copies of themselves, but require a host. Require a host. They must infect a host, in this case, like a human cell, right? And then they hijack the machinery of the human cells to make copies of themselves. So on their own, they are not really able to replicate, right? So, it's kind of non-living thing, right? But once inside a host, under the right condition, then it's able to make copies of itself and then, infect more cells, right? So, that's what the whole debate is about. But you know what? It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, right, whether it's a living thing or a non-living thing, the fact is viruses could be very dangerous, okay? And, with the outbreak, with the pandemic, right, the SARS-CoV-2, it killed many, many people, right? So sometimes maybe the classification is not so important after all. But understanding the machinery, right, allow us to tweak the virus, right? As we will learn in the genetics unit, right? We are able to use virus to deliver genes sometimes, right? In the context of gene therapy. So more on that later. Now, I think we could all agree, although life takes many forms, but all living things share a set of common characteristics, right? Many of you had participated and gave me some ideas, okay? But we're gonna go through a set of, I think, 7 characteristics that are universally accepted as characteristics of living things. Okay, so here we see, right, life takes many different forms. As you might recognize, this is a poison dart frog, and the whole thing is poisonous, right? The skin secretes this poison. It will paralyze the victim. Here's another one. This one you might have seen before. It's called the Portuguese man of war. It's a type of kind of jellyfish, and it stings, packs a punch. If it stings you, it leaves behind this really, really big red blotch and hurts a lot. According to what I read anyways, I've never been stung by one of those, thankfully. And then there's this one. It's kind of like a lizard. It's called an oxalotl. You can look it up. It's quite an interesting fellow. It's always smiling at people. So, some people like to have it as a pet, but actually it's banned in Canada. Some provinces, you're not allowed to have one of these things. It's illegal. Because it's considered as an invasive pet. Like when people I guess they buy it and then they have like buyer's remorse and they're like, I don't want this thing anymore. It's, I don't want to take care of it. And, they don't want to flush it down the toilet. So what they do is sometimes they release it in the local pond or something, right? And these things run wild in the ponds, and they could keep on reproducing and take up so much resources, and they basically destroy the local wildlife. So that's why they were banned in some provinces. In any cases, my point is there are very different looking things here. Okay, they live in very different environments, and yet they share these characteristics that I'm gonna tell you right now. First characteristics of living things. Okay, it's the concept that they exhibit some kind of complexity to it, some kind of ordered organization. So if you look at most organisms, there are some like left-right symmetry to it. Butterfly is symmetrical left and right. Humans are, for the most part, symmetrical. Some people are more symmetrical than others, but still, right? Like it's kind of like mirror image, left and right, right? If you look at seashells, right, the inside, the spiral, it's almost like looking down a spiraling staircase, right? Very organized structure. Flower petals, depending on the kind of flowers, sometimes they're always multiples of 3 or multiples of 7. Right? And it's not just complexity and organization on the organism level. If you look at the organism at a microscopic level, there are also complexity and order. This is a plan transport vessel that we're looking at, and you can see within it's kind of like their blood vessels, right? And you can see that inside the vessels there are very organized structure. So it's not random. Okay, everything appears to be purposeful. They have complexity associated with it, and then there are order associated with the living thing, and that's something that's shared with all living organisms. So in terms of this order, right? How do you build an organism? We're gonna be going up this ladder throughout the course. Starting at the very basic building block level, we have what's called atoms. And so atoms are, some of you might have a bit of chemistry background. If not, that's okay. I think you will have your chemistry class, tomorrow or something. The atoms are the basic building blocks of everything in this universe. Does anybody have an example of atoms here that you might know of that builds a person? What are some key atoms that we have in the body?
Oxygen.
Yeah, so there's definitely oxygen. Yuchi said carbon. That's right. So, oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, right? So these are,
Nitrogen.
yeah,
I guess.
nitrogen as well. Very good. Okay, so these are basic atoms that makes up an organisms. Now these atoms can come together to form molecules. Okay, so Stephen said water is an example of molecule, and water is H2O. So you take 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen, and you end up getting a molecule. Okay, so there are various molecules in the body that are important, things like glucose, for example. And then lecture 2, we'll be learning about macromolecules. If you look at water, it's just 3 atoms, right? Okay, 3 atoms. But macromolecules, we're talking about hundreds and sometimes thousands of molecules. And there are 4 major macromolecules in living organisms. And we have things like carbohydrates. You should write these down if you are not. Carbohydrate. We have protein. We also have lipid, as well as nucleic acid. Okay, so we'll be learning about all these in great detail next class. Next lecture. Okay. And then the macromolecules would come together to form these organelles, like mini organs that you will find within the cell. The cell would assemble into specialized tissues that do different things. So I'll give you some examples of tissues, right? We have like connective tissue that binds everything together. Yeah. And then different tissues will form organs. And then organs would have specialized function. This is the stomach, of course. And the stomach is part of the digestive system. Okay. And then multiple body system, organ system, is going to form the organism. Okay, so throughout the course, throughout the program, actually, first semester in biology as well as the anatomy physiology, we'll be going up this hierarchy of organization, and we'll be learning about all these things. Okay, so in this course, I think we will stop right here at the tissue. Okay, it's the last lecture that we will learn, and then next semester you will learn all about the organ and organ system. Okay. So regardless of whether we're talking about butterflies, birds, bees, dogs, humans, right? They all have this same hierarchy of organization. So order is the first characteristic of living things. Will the answers to the study guide be posted online? Yes, but only at the end of the week. Okay, so when we'll do some in class, and then you know, you will be encouraged to try it on your own, and then I'll post the full answer at the end of the week when we have finished the lecture. All right. Next characteristic of living things is homeostasis. Okay. Someone mentioned about homeostasis earlier. I think it was Hiren. So homeostasis is the ability to maintain an internal balance. Okay. Things constantly changes in the environment, both externally and internally. Okay. So the temperature might get hot or it might get cold outside, but you try to keep it warm in the body, right? You try to maintain a constant temperature of 37 degrees Celsius. Your internal environment changes as well. For example, when you eat, your blood glucose level goes up, so your body has to work to bring it back down. When you are fasting, your blood glucose level goes down, so your body has to work to bring it back up. Right? So internal environment as well as external environment changes constantly, and your body will have ways, will have mechanisms to maintain homeostasis, which again is an internal balance. Despite changes that are happening on the outside and on the inside. So we create a stable internal environment. The way by which you maintain homeostasis, right? Those methods, we call them mechanisms. There are different kinds of mechanisms. Some mechanisms are physiological. Other mechanisms are behavioral. So what's the difference, right? Physiological mechanisms are basically things your body does. Okay, these are things that your body automatically will be able to do, right? No learning is required. You are born with the ability to do this. Behavioral is something that you deliberately do, okay? So requires learning, okay? It's more like your choice. You decided to do it to help you maintain homeostasis. I know it sounds really weird, right? But let me give you an example. It will help you understand like right away. Let's say it's cold outside. It's cold outside. What is a behavioral mechanism that you would do to keep yourself warm?
To put on
Put
layers
a
of
jacket on.
Yeah, everybody said put on a jacket, right? Exactly, right? You put on a jacket to keep you warm. That's behavior. You choose to put on a jacket, right? You learn at a very young age because you know our parents keeps on telling us put on a jacket or you're gonna catch a cold, right? Okay, so you know to do that, right? So that's behavior. Now, what is a physiological thing that your body does for you when it's cold? When it's really cold, and even wearing a jacket doesn't keep you warm enough, right?
Produce more energy to keep you warm.
Yeah, okay. Your metabolism might goes up a little bit, but anything else?
Maybe body tries to drop the temperature.
Okay. I think you guys are thinking a little bit too hard, right? Ever stand in a bus stop, right, waiting for a bus when it's -40 outside? 10 minutes later, the bus is still not here. What's going on? You're gonna shiver, right? You're like, oh, it's so cold, right? So shivering, I think Alex said that, right? As shivers, right? Shivering is a physiological mechanism that helps bring your body temperature up, right? Because shivering causes your muscle to contract, and when your muscle contract, it creates heat. Okay, so you guys understand the difference? Physiological is something that your body does for you. Nobody taught you how to shiver. Your body just does it on its own. Okay, babies are born with the ability to shiver, right? Like it's just part of our body process, right? Samina said vasoconstriction. Yeah, that's a really good one. Your blood vessels actually constrict and bury themselves deeper into the body to prevent heat loss. So all these things that are happening on its own is physiological. Okay, behavioral is things that you learn how to do. Okay, so let me give you a few other examples here. Actually, I'm gonna launch a poll here. Oh, someone is requesting to record this meeting. You don't have to record it. I'm gonna record it for you, okay? And then I'm gonna post it online, okay? So you will have access to it, okay? You don't have to record it on your own, okay? So I'm gonna click the 9 here. All right, so this is a lizard, okay? I don't know if you know, but lizards, they are cold-blooded, okay? We are not, hopefully we're not, okay? We're warm-blooded. We maintain a body temperature of 37 degrees Celsius, okay? But they are cold-blooded, meaning they don't have a way to maintain an internal body temperature, okay? Their body temperature fluctuates with the environment. So one of the ways that they stay warm is to take a sun bath. Okay, they like to stand on the rock and then just soak in the sun to keep them warm, right? So I want you to tell me what you think. Is this a behavioral mechanism or physiological? Choose A if you think is physiological. Choose B if you think is behavioral. I just launched the poll. You should be able to see the poll. If you don't see the poll, that's okay as well. You can just think about the answer, and I'll tell you in a bit. All right, so the lizard taking a sun bath, is that a physiological or behavioral mechanism? Staying in the sun to keep themselves warm. If you're not seeing the poll, you can also let me know, okay? You can say in the chat, I can't see the poll or something. That will be useful information for me. Sometimes it has to do with the device that you're on. Sometimes on the phone, people might not be able to see this. Okay, thank you for participating. Let's see. Let me share the results. 60% of you said it's behavioral. The other 45% says it is physiological. The correct answer is behavioral, right? So it's something that the organisms does, right? Like on its own, right? It has to deliberately climb onto the rock and decided to stay there, right? To soak in the sun, right? So if it's something that it does, then it's behavioral. If it's something that your body does for you, then it's going to be physiological. Okay, what about having a cut, paper cut or something? That looks more than a paper cut though. Like if you cut your finger while you're chopping your food or something, right? The bleeding will stop, right, within a minute or two if it's not a deep cut. Is that physiological or is that behavioral? Let's try the poll one more time here, okay? Just gonna keep it on for like 30 seconds here. If you think blood clotting is physiological, please choose A. If you think it's behavioral, please choose B. Lovely. Okay. Resounding 100% of you who answers that is physiological. Yeah, your body does that for you, right? Okay. One of the first thing that the baby comes out is they will collect a blood sample. Right. If you are parents, you will know. Okay. They do a little cut in the heel. It's called heel prick, and then they collect the blood and then test for a bunch of stuff, right? And then the bleeding will stop within minutes, right? That's something that your body does for the baby. They don't have to learn it. It's something that you're born with, physiological. Okay. The dog, they stick their tongue out to stay cool. Okay. Because as the saliva evaporates, it keeps them cool. That would be a behavioral mechanism. It's something that the dog does, right? Rather than the dog's body does for them. Okay. So that's what it is. I hope it makes sense. Okay. In case you got lost about what we're talking about characteristics of living things, right? So the first one is order. Second one is the ability to maintain homeostasis. Next, we have growth and development. Right? Living things goes through stages of growth and development from birth to mature adults. Okay? Although the phases that they go through could be different depending on the kind of organisms. For humans, right, we pretty much is the like we are mini version, but it keeps on growing bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Right? Whereas something like a butterfly, they go through drastic changes, right? We call that metamorphosis, right? So regardless of how if there's drastic changes or not drastic changes, the point is they all have to grow somehow, and then they would develop throughout their life. Next characteristic is the requirement for energy, right? They need to have a way to obtain energy. Okay, so either it is from food source if they are a consumer, right? So like a cow, something like a shark, right? Those are consumer, meaning they have to get their energy by consuming, by eating other organisms. Okay? In other cases, they are able to directly produce energy, obtain energy from the sun. So those are called producers. Okay, so consumers are like humans, right? Cows, sharks. Producers, they are like plants. Okay, these are fungus. Fungus is a little bit tricky. Okay, they're also consumers because they break down and decay like dead things in some cases, rotting things. So they cannot produce their own food. That makes them a consumer. But the key thing here to know is either way, you have to have a way to obtain energy. Okay, so we will learn about energy production in lecture 5 when we discuss metabolism. Okay, so ordered, homeostasis, growth and development, requirement of energy. Next one is respond to stimuli. Okay, so stimuli is the plural for stimulus. Okay, basically a stimulus is some kind of environmental trigger. Yeah, and you'll respond to it. Okay, so how you respond to it depends on what the stimulus is. Right? Sometimes the stimulus is going to trigger mechanisms to help you maintain homeostasis. So it could be cold, right? And then your body does all these things to keep you warm. That's a response to stimulus, the coldness, and the result of the response allows you to maintain homeostasis. Okay. If you accidentally touch something sharp, you're gonna remove your hand, right? That's a reflex. That's an example of response to stimulus. Some of you might have seen this thing before. That's called a Venus flytrap. Right? They have all these little, I don't know what you call them, Brussels, I guess. And when a bee or something or fly lands on one of these Brussels and cross them, then it will close and trap the bee, and then it will digest the bee. Some people call them carnivorous plants that eat things. The reason they trap the bugs is because they need the nitrogen. Okay, these plants actually grows on soil that is very, very acidic. They're poor in nitrogen, and plants, they need nitrogen to grow. So the only way for them to get the nitrogen is to get it from the bugs. Respond to stimulus. Okay, that's another characteristic. Next, we have the ability to reproduce. That's important. Reproduction is the a way to propagate a species, right? If the organisms don't reproduce, then they will perish, right? They will become extinct. Right? So all cells contains genetic material that enables every organism to reproduce its own kind. Right? So panda is going to make baby pandas, polar bear is going to make baby polar bears, humans make baby humans, right? And the last one is the ability to adapt and evolve. Right? It's important to understand that populations evolve over time that allows them to be more adapted to their environment, which then allows them to survive better and have more offspring. Okay, individuals do not evolve. It's the population that evolves. So let me write that down for you. Individual. Individuals do not evolve. Population does. Okay. So examples of how an organism becomes very adapted to environment. If you think of like a hummingbird, right? Their very, very long beak is adapted to allow them to get nectar from flowers that have very, very deep, again, I don't know what they're called, deep pockets, I guess, right? So the pollen is the nectar is all the way at the end. And if it wasn't for this very long beak, they wouldn't be able to gain access to it, right? Over here, we can see a seahorse that's very blended to its environment, right? So it enhances survival, right? A predator is not going to be able to see it easily, not going to be able to, eat it up, right? So let me explain this concept of evolution a little bit more for you, because it's kind of an important concept. All right. So let's say hypothetically we have these organisms. Okay, just making them up. So these little oval things with legs. Okay, they live on an island. Okay, and if you're wondering if you should draw this down, sure, why not? Okay, so you have a bunch of these oval thingies with legs on them, and it comes in two variations. Okay, you have some that have furs on them, and then you have ones that are just naked. Okay, they have nothing on them. Okay, all right, so two variations. Now these variations, whether they have furs or not, there has to be a genetic component to it. Okay, if something has a genetic component to it, means it can be passed on to the next generation. Okay, so they live on let's say a big island. Okay, big island, and then they're just doing their thing. But let's say there is a sudden drastic environmental change. Okay, maybe the temperature drops significantly. Okay, maybe because of a ice age or something, some kind of climate event, and then we have very drastic drop in temperature. Okay, gets very, very cold for a very long time. So what happens? Well, which one will survive better?
The one with the hair.
Yeah, the one with the fur, with the hair, right? So these things starts to die off. Okay, and then the hairy ones, they will be able to withstand the cold temperature, and then they will find each other and then have babies, and then they will make more hairy ones, right? Make more hairy ones. These one might die off, right? And then you might have a few of them left Then maybe they found a cave to live in or something to keep themselves warm. But over several generations, right, the population would shift towards the ones that possess a trait that allows them to survive better in the environment, right? So the population, most of them will now be consisting of the hairy one. That's evolution, okay? Evolution requires you to have variation in the population to begin with, okay? A lot of people get confused. I'm not confused, but like there's a misconception. Many people think this way, and this is the wrong way, okay? They think, okay, so we have these oval things with the legs, and then the temperature becomes cold, and as a way to adapt, they start growing hair, okay, to withstand the cold. That's the wrong view. That doesn't happen, okay? In this model, the individual evolve, which doesn't happen, okay? In this model, the population evolves, right? If you don't have fur to begin with, you cannot just, you know, all of a sudden have the ability to grow fur just because it's cold, right? To have that, to have the fur, that trait has to already exist within the population. Do you understand that? Okay, so it's not like you can change yourself somehow to adapt to the environment. Okay, if you don't already have the trait that makes you more suitable for a particular environment, then you are not gonna make it. Okay, but the population will. All right, so let's say, and I'm gonna explain this again in a different way. Okay, so let's say, you know, the ice age has ended and now the temperature is increasing drastically. Then all of a sudden, right, the population of these things, right, now all the ones that have the hairy trait will start to die off because of overheating or something. Okay, and all of a sudden these ones, right, they're able to come out of their caves and they will reproduce. And then they will make more of the ones that are naked, which would be more suitable for the high temperature, right? So the population can change one way or the other. There is no best form. Okay, evolution doesn't create the best form. It creates the most suitable form for the current situation, for the current environment. If the environment changes, then, you know, what's best for the previous situation might not apply anymore. And then the population will evolve once again. Okay? Do you guys follow me so far? Any questions, specific questions about what I talked about? Okay, you might be thinking, why do I care, right? This sounds completely hypothetical. What does that have to do with the real world? Well, this is very, very important because, for example, of the pandemic, right? So you hear on the news, right? There are new variants of the COVID virus, and then we need new vaccines, right? What are new variants? What does it mean, right? Just very briefly, okay? So this is a virus. Let's say this is the SARS-CoV-2 virus, okay? And on the surface of the virus, there are different molecules, okay, different markers, okay? So, you know, some red ones, some blue ones, and then maybe some green ones, okay? And when you get a vaccine, which you'll learn next semester, but long story short, the vaccine is gonna allow you to produce antibodies, which are these Y-shaped proteins in your body that will tag the virus. You tag the virus. It will tag them and then basically kill them. That's the short version. Okay. And so what happens is all these viruses, you know, let's say they have you know, all these red ones on them, okay, because it's the same virus. So when you make the antibodies, you'll be able to kill all of them, right? Kill all of them. Okay, no problem. But the virus, they actually reproduce very, very quickly. Okay, and when something is able to reproduce very quickly, it causes them to introduce a lot of changes in their genes, something we'll learn later on in the course. And so what happens is maybe as a result of just chance, they change the way that the red one looks. Right? These red markers, maybe now it becomes more of like a pink one. Okay, so you might have a few of them that's pink, but the rest will still be red. Okay, then what happens is the antibody that you produced earlier will only be able to kill off the red one, but not the pink one. Right, so the pink one will now stay in the person's body, and they will be able to replicate and create more and more copies of themselves. Okay, and then the person like sneeze and all these things comes out of the body, and now it goes infect another person. Then you have yourself a new variant. Okay, the immune protection that we got from previous vaccinations or from previous exposures, they no longer work because the virus has evolved, right, to evade the antibodies. Okay, so that's basically evolution in real life. And that's not just, they don't just apply to viruses, it applies to bacteria as well, right? You might have heard of superbugs, which are multi-drug resistance bacteria, and they follow the same kind of evolution pathway like this. Okay, so that is that. Those are the 7 characteristics of living things. Okay, any questions before we move on? Usually I do give a bit of a break halfway, but because we spent like half an hour going through the introductory stuff today, we're gonna skip the break today and just push through. Hope that's okay with you. So that's that. Those are the 7 characteristics. Right? So that took care of the living things part. Go ahead, Maria, you have a question?
Yeah, can you just repeat the growth and development one? I know it was a
Sure.
weird one.
No worries. So growth and development just means that all the organisms from when they're born to their mature form, there is some kind of transformation. Okay, that maybe they get bigger. Okay, maybe they develop new skills and stuff like that, right? So it doesn't just stay the same. It's not going to be when it dies, it's not going to be the same organism as it was born. There's some kind of process in between. That's all.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so yeah, go ahead, Salam.
Sorry. Genetic mutation can help to homeostasis. Yeah.
Your question is, does genetic variation
mutation can help to homeostasis?
Can help to maintain homeostasis?
Homeostasis, yes.
Okay, so the two things are separate. Homeostasis is just maintaining an internal balance, right? Okay, like when it's cold outside, you're able to stay warm. That's homeostasis. Mutation allows the population to evolve, and when they evolve, they become better adapted to the environment. Okay, so like the situation, right, of the hypothetical organism that I say, when it's cold, right, the population can evolve to adapt to the cold, okay, by having the furs, right? Or they could, not have the fur, and that will allow them to be better adapted to the hot environment. Okay, and what causes them to have the fur and not have the fur? That's the genetic variation that we're talking about, right? And the variation could be as a result of mutations. Does that answer your question, or you have a follow-up?
Right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yuchi asks, is hibernation physiological? Hibernation, I would say, is behavioral. Okay, so again, it's something that, like, if you think about the bear has like, I don't know how the bear thinks, but it appears that the bear has to deliberately find a spot and lie down, right, and go to sleep, right? Like that's something that the organism does, rather than something that is happening, inside the body, right? That's the clear distinction between the two. I hope that answers your question. Okay, well, where are we now? So we talked about you know, what living things are and how we define living things. And now the second part of a definition of what biology is would be the scientific study. And we have to look at the meaning of scientific study now. The word science, right? Scientific study, right? Science, right? The word science is derived from a Latin word meaning to know. A lot of words in biology and chemistry and in science in general, they are based on Latin because that was the official language for you know, writing down science textbooks and documents related to medicine and science for hundreds of years. Right? And so a lot of words still have a Latin root based in them, and the Latin word for science means to know. Right? So it's a way of understanding based on inquiry, based on asking questions. Okay. And you know, we as humans are curious by nature, right? We want to know why things are happening. We want to know the reason behind, you know, what we are seeing. And that's sort of, it's the drive for science. There are two main approaches when it comes to science, right? We have what's called discovery science, and we have hypothesis-driven science. Okay, so we're going to spend the next couple of slides talking about discovery science first. Discovery science involves studying something, okay, studying a system without changing it in any way. You are just observing, okay, and then recording what you're observing. So like, you know, studying global warming, okay, the effects of global warming. You're observing what's happening. You are making conclusions based on what you're seeing. You're not manipulating the system. You're not changing it in any way, okay? So the observations that you make can be qualitative or quantitative. Okay, you want to pay attention to this because when you do your lab, the first lab, when you study the effects of temperature on membrane permeability, when you're recording your results, you want to know whether you are describing it qualitatively or quantitatively. Okay, so what's the difference? Qualitative, the first one, right? Qualitative with the L, qualitative observations are observations that we make with our senses. Okay, so our senses involves like seeing with our eyes, right? Smelling with our nose, tasting, although you shouldn't be tasting anything in like an actual lab, right? Okay, but you know, sometimes tasting is important. Feeling with our skins, right? Even hearing in some cases, right? So those are qualitative observations. But our senses are actually quite limited in a lot of cases, right? So we use different tools to extend our senses, right? We can use microscope to see really, really small things, okay? We can use a telescope, for example, to see things that are really far away. Right? So we have all these tools to extend our senses, okay? So let's write this down on a note here. And so let's talk about qualitative again. Qualitative observation. Things that we observe using our senses. Okay. So let's say we use sight. Okay. So how can we describe something just by looking at it, right? So we can say things like color, shapes, right? Size, right? What's another one? Smell, right? Smell, odor. Okay, so what are example of descriptions that we can use for smell? Like if you have a solution and you try to smell it, right? You know, they tell you to waft it like that, right? Don't smell it directly, right? Yep, there could be a sweet smell, right? Something like honey, maybe. Foul smell, sure. Sweet smell, foul. Rancid, yeah. Very descriptive, you guys. I love it. Okay, what else? What else can things smell like? Yeah, pungent, right? Strong smell. Florence, go ahead, please. Yeah, Florence, I see you have a hand up, but can I unmute first?
Okay, sorry. So I wanted to say it could maybe not have any smell at all.
Yeah, exactly. I was looking for that. So what do you say when it doesn't smell like anything? What's the word, huh? Do you know?
No smell.
No smell. Yeah, no smell. That's direct. That's correct. But we can say odorless, right? Odorless. Yeah. All right. You know, with our hands, right? We can touch, right? Touch. What are some description for touch? Okay, so Samina said texture. Very good. What kind of texture do you have in mind, Samina? Okay, sharp. Tash says sharp. Okay,
A rough
smooth.
texture. Hard.
Rough, yeah, very good. Slimy, excellent, excellent. You guys have way more than one. Another one, yeah, Florence, did you put your hand up again? Or was that the hand from before? I couldn't tell. Soft. Okay, thank you. What else? Coarse, right? Very good. Yeah, so all these things, right? Like if you know, if you get blindfolded and then I give you a bunch of stuff to touch, you probably can guess what it is that you're touching, right? Like, oh, that's like, you know, I'm touching a brick or something, right? All right, what else do we have? Taste. Taste, right? We shouldn't be tasting anything in the lab, I keep on saying, but sometimes taste is important, right? In certain setting. You know, just a quick funny story. When we do the in-person class, we do the lab, the membrane permeability lab, right? We actually do it with beetroot. And one semester, a student ate the beetroot that I gave him for his lab, right? And then I was so frustrated because I didn't have enough for everybody. And he's like, "Oh, sorry, I was hungry." And then, you know, I let it go because maybe he actually was hungry. But like, you should never eat anything in the lab, right? You should never taste anything in the lab unless it was, you know, part of the design of the lab. But in terms of taste, right? You know, we probably are familiar with taste, right? Saltiness, salty, sweet. Right? What else?
Sour.
Sorry.
Sour.
Sour, yes, sour, yeah, bitter, right? Okay, but you can also describe the texture of what you are tasting, right? You know, it's hard, right? It's soft, it's mushy, right? All that stuff. Okay, just last one here, sound. Now this is very unusual for you know, cell biology. Yeah, crumbles. Okay, very good. For sound for cell biology. Okay, but you know, if we're talking about people who study animals, right? Like maybe they're observing a new animal, right? Then sound would be important, right? Like they'll be like, oh, this new species that we observed sounded like I don't know, sounded like sound like a lion or something. Okay, so like, you know, in those contexts, you would have to describe it, right? Using various sound words that I'm not familiar with. Squeaky, yes, it sounds squeaky, the voice, right? In chemistry, sometimes you might need to describe the sound, right? Oh, like when you mix this chemical with this, you know, it creates this bubbly sound. Okay, so probably a new gas is being formed, right? Like you have a pop sound when you try to you know, put a burning flint to the gas and creates a pop sound, right? So that means it's hydrogen or something, right? So sound is not very applicable for what we are doing, but know that, you know, it does it does have a role in certain contexts. Yeah. So hissing sound, right? Very good, very descriptive. Anyway, my point is these are qualitative observations. You are doing this solely based on your senses. And sometimes we have to extend our senses, right? If they're not good enough, right? We have to use microscope to see smaller things. We have to use instruments that would help us see better in some cases. So let's take a look at this picture. You don't really have to know what you're looking at, right? In fact, it's better if you don't know what you're looking at. You know, you're looking at this for the first time and you're just making observations. You're seeing it, what happens, like what's going on here without changing the system, right? So what are some descriptor that you can use just by looking at the picture?
It's single-celled organism, like it's very simple.
Sure, okay, single cell. If you do know you're looking at a cell, which you're correct, these are bacteria. So single cell, very good. What else? What other observations?
Can we say about
The shape.
Okay, the shape. And what kind of shape would you think this is?
Like a round,
Round, yeah.
Cylinder.
cylindrical.
Yeah, oval cylindrical shape, right? Very good. Anyone else? Yes, Amina, go ahead, please.
I see little bumps. I don't know what to call it. The little,
Right,
yeah.
the little things right here, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So there are white dots or bumps, I guess you were saying. Bumps on the cell. Color, what's the color? Yeah, go ahead. Gray, right? I guess gray color. Anyone else? Just a couple more, maybe.
They look like they're attached, like they're half cylinders.
Okay, yeah. So maybe like this guy, right? Some are attached, right? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, maybe two more. The crust under it. What? The back. Oh, like these things. Spider web thing. Okay, yeah. You know what? Honestly, I haven't noticed until you guys mentioned it. You know, of the 15 years that I've touched this, nobody ever told me about a spider web. So there you go. Learn something new every time. There is the spider web. Medium size, small size, they come in different sizes, right? So some are smaller than the other, right? Excellent. They are very, very good. They congregate, they clump together, right? As long as you make the observation based on your senses, that's going to be a correct answer. All right, very good. Next one is quantitative observations. Okay, so these are measurements. You have to use some kind of instruments to make measurements. Okay, so you know, rather than just saying, you know, some are medium size, some are big size. Well, you can tell me exactly how big they are, right? So the length, right? So you will learn how to measure the length of something under the microscope in the microscope lab. Usually there's some kind of reference bar here. This says 10 micrometer. That's what this symbol is. It's not a U, okay? It's mu. That's how you pronounce it. Mu, micrometer. It's a Greek letter. And 1 meter equals to 1 million micrometer. Okay. So if you take a look at here, the reference, so this bar is about 10, well, this bar is 10 micrometer. And if you look at the bacteria here, right, like if you compare this to this, you might say, okay, this is roughly 5 micrometer. Okay, so that's a measurement that use numbers, right? When you're using numbers, is more objective. You know, because after all, right, just looking at what people were saying, some were saying this is oval shape, some were saying they're round shape, something is cone shape, right? And, you know, maybe all of you are correct, right? Like this looks like one of those plastic Easter eggs that, you know, you open up, right? So, you know, different people have different perception. of things. So qualitative is kind of subjective. It depends on the person. But observations that are made using numbers, they tend to be more objective. Okay, so length, right? Not related to this picture, but other things that you can measure would be mass, right? Density. Density is how much mass something has per volume, right? Volume. Any other examples that you guys can think of? Distance from one another. Yeah, so distance would be like a variation on length. Anything else? Again, not related to this picture, just in general, any kind of other quantitative measurements that you can think of. Force, yeah, how much force does it take to break something? Okay, that's a good one, right? Time, maybe. Speed. Okay, energy, how many joules does it take? How many calories does the organism require, right? All these are examples of quantitative because you use numbers to measure it. Does anybody have any question before we move on? Okay, great. So again, right, like sometimes I went on a tangent and we talk about a bunch of stuff and then we forget what is it that we were talking about. Yes, temperature will be a quantitative one. Very good. Okay, you know, today is 20 degrees Celsius, number, quantitative. So we were talking about like science, right? Two main approaches of science, and discovery science is making observations. So you observe either using your senses or using numbers. Okay, but when we make all these observations, the next step is to create some kind of conclusion based on what you observe. So when you take all your observations and you come up with some kind of broad conclusion, some kind of broad generalization, this is what we call inductive reasoning. It flows from specific examples to general. Okay, inductive reasoning. And these are pond water organisms. I forgot why I put this picture here. But let me give you an example, a few examples of inductive reasoning. And you will know that you actually do it on a daily basis. Right? So sometimes I take my kids, my daughters to Dollarama and let them buy something. Okay. And I'll be like, okay, just make sure you choose something that's under $5, okay, or something like that. Okay, so my older daughter, one time she saw this. I think it was like one of those special erasers that looks like a cake or something. Anyway, she saw this eraser, and then there's no price on it, and she's like, hey, Baba, can I buy this one? I don't know how much it is. But is it under $5? And then I was thinking, okay, teaching moment. And so I took her back to where she got it, and I was like, hey, let's use inductive reasoning. I mean, I didn't say it that way, right? But that's what I was thinking. Right? I was like, let's take a look at the other stuff here, right? How much is the scissors? And then she's like, oh, that's like $2. I was like, okay. How much is the ruler? She's like, oh, that's $2. And then I was like, how much are those stems? And she was like, oh, $2. And then I was like, so where did you get the erasers again? She was like, from here. So I was like, what do you think? How much do you think that costs? And then she had a moment of realizing. She was like, oh, everything here is $2? I was like, yeah, probably, right? So that's inductive reasoning. You take these specific examples, right? This thing is $2, that thing is $2, that thing is $2. Probably everything on this wall is going to be $2, right? Okay, so you probably should change the name. Nothing costs $1 anymore, right? At Dollarama's. But anyway, that's inductive reasoning, right? Making mini observations and then coming up with a generalized concept. Okay. Here's another example. Dave went to a party on the weekend, okay, and then he found out later, okay, that I don't know, Matthew here got COVID, and then Samantha got COVID, okay, and then Danny also got COVID. then what's the logical conclusion, right? Based on these observations, it's like, oh man, someone must have had COVID at the party, and then it, spreads it to everybody, right? Like, I better get tested, right? So that's an example of inductive reasoning as well, right? So these are just like regular things that we do everyday life, right? We don't call it inductive reasoning, but it's things that we do, right, as part of our daily lives to make conclusions based on what we see. Okay, and so in a more scientific level, right, let me give you one last example of inductive reasoning. One can say that a fly is made up of cells. These are actual fly cells, by the way. A fish is made up of cell. A tree is made up of cell. A mushroom is made up of cell. A bird is made up of cell. What's the logical conclusion here, guys, using inductive reasoning?
Everything's made of cells.
Everything is a bit of a stretch, but
Well,
that's good stuff.
living organisms.
Yeah, that's good. Is that what you were going to say, Takiri?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was Takiri. Sorry. The other students. Yeah. So, the conclusion, right, is all living things are made of cells, right? So, again, you start with a bunch of stuff like observation number 1, observation number 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you make many observations. These are specific examples, and then you come up with one general statement. Okay, one general statement. That's called inductive reasoning. Do you guys understand this? Please do ask questions. If you're confused or you just need me to elaborate, anything I can help you with. Okay, fantastic. I guess we'll find out on the first quiz whether you really understand or not.
Oh, sorry, sir. So you're saying that based on like specific points or common points that you gather from, I guess, each of these things here, we come up like with a general, I guess, conclusion.
Exactly, right?
Inductive reasoning.
That's right. So we make individual observations, either
Okay.
qualitative or quantitative. In this case, would be qualitative, right? Okay. And then you try to come up with a broad conclusion. That's inductive reasoning. Okay? From specific cases to general cases. Now, the opposite is called deductive reasoning. Okay, so from a general statement, are you able to apply it to a specific case? Okay, so back at my Dollarama example, right? After my daughter realized everything in this section is $2, that's the general statement, right? Everything is $2. That's the general statement. She then applies that to her eraser. It was like, oh, the eraser I also took from this section, it must also be $2. Okay, so it's going from the general statement that everything is $2 to a specific case, the eraser, right? That's deductive reasoning. Okay, what did I say his name was? Dave, I think. So Dave realized, oh, someone must have had COVID at the party, spread it to all these people, and then that's a general conclusion. And then to apply it to a specific is like, oh, I probably should get tested, even though I feel fine right now, but just to be safe, maybe I should get tested because there's a high chance I caught something, right? Okay, so that's applying to his own situation, deductive reasoning. Here, example would be, those little oval things with the legs, right? Okay, let's say we found out, oh, these are real organisms. Okay, they actually do exist. Then, how can I use deductive reasoning in this case? Well, this is a living thing right? And the general conclusion was that all living things are made of cells. Therefore, this thing must also be made up of cells. Is this okay? From specific to general, that's the inductive part. And then when you take that general statement and apply it to a new situation, that's deductive reasoning.
Excuse me.
Yes, please go ahead.
Can you elaborate on the last one on this page? Like,
Sure. Okay. So here, right? Let me just discard all this and try to write it down one more time here. Maybe, you know what? Maybe we fill this in and is going to be probably make more sense here. Okay, so here, this is your study guide, and we have a table, induction and deduction, or inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning from one to the other. So let's write down the definition here. Okay, write down the definition here. So first of all, induction or inductive reasoning, right? So that's like derives means to come up with, derives general conclusion based on many specific observations. Okay. So examples I gave you was this, right? Like, you know, plant is made up of cells, right? Dog is made up of cells. Bird is made up of cells, so on and so forth, right? Okay, like you can write a few more observations, but then the key thing here to know is you take all these things and then you conclude all living things are made of cells. Okay. Now, in terms of like a diagram, it looks like this, right? Like you take a bunch of facts, not facts, but like observations. Like I said, that's probably a better word, where you make all these observations and then you boil it down to a single conclusion. Okay, a general statement. Okay, that is inductive reasoning or induction. Now, on the other hand, here, on the deductive reasoning, that is to apply the general conclusion to a specific case, okay, to a specific scenario. Okay. So in the example here, right, I will go back to this picture. You start with the conclusion, whatever conclusion that we had, and you apply it to different cases. Case 1, case 2, case 3. Right? So, you know, you can say, since humans are living things, they must be made up of cells. Okay, because the conclusion was that all living things are made out of cells, right? So, if humans are living things, they must also be made out of cells. Okay, again, right? Everything on the wall costs us $2. I took that from the wall, even though it doesn't have a price tag on it. I can deduce that it costs $2. Deductive. Does that answer your question? I forgot who asked it. Is that okay, Dingshira?
Yes, it's okay. Thank you.
Yep. Anyone else have anything they want to ask about this thing? All right. So let's do a poll question. This question will be guaranteed to be on your first quiz. Right? It's going to be the same question. So let's see if you can answer it. This is the last thing we're going to do today. Okay, and I'm going to let you go. All right, go ahead.
I can see a poll.
You cannot see the poll?
No.
Oh, that's okay. Just write down the answer, yourself, and then we will take it up in a bit. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, guys, the poll is anonymous. Okay, so don't worry about getting it wrong. Just participate. Even if you are not sure, just pick your best guess. Thank you, Fatuma, for sharing your answer. All right, well, I'm gonna end the poll, even though some of you are still trying to decide, I'm guessing, which is totally fine. But I'm gonna take it up now. Okay. So like I said, this question, the exact same question, guarantee will be on your first quiz, no tricks, okay? But like the order of the answer is gonna be mixed up, okay? Don't just memorize, oh, the answer is A or something, okay? Like, it's gonna be different when it comes to the actual quiz, in terms of the order of the answers. Let's see, the most popular answers is B and C, and then followed by A and D. Okay, let's see what's the actual correct answer. The question asks, which of the following is an example of deductive reasoning? So deductive, is it from specific to general or general to specific?
General to specific.
That's right, general to specific. So, first statement, all viruses require a host to replicate. That's a general statement. So that could be it. I'm just gonna put a check mark here first. I'm not saying that's the answer, but put a check mark there. B, COVID-19, HPV, Ebola, influenza, or viruses. Those are specific examples, right? And then it creates a general statement. So that's not deductive, that's inductive. So that's not the right answer. Okay, that's going from specific to general. That's not what we want. All viruses require a host to replicate. Oh, that sounds exactly like the first one, going from a general statement, right? So that could be it, but we have to read closer later on. Next one, COVID-19 is a virus and it requires a host to replicate. Ebola is a virus, therefore it also requires a host to replicate. This is going from one example directly to another example, okay? You cannot just you cannot just generalize based on one example to an example, right? Like that's not how you make conclusion. Okay, that's very specific. It's like anyway, that's not the answer. Okay, so all viruses require a host to replicate. COVID-19 is a virus; it must require a host to replicate. And then here it sounds almost the same. Okay, all viruses require a host to replicate. COVID-19 requires a host to replicate. Therefore, COVID-19 is a virus. So what's the difference, and how do you decide? Well, the problem here is the way that this sentence is structured. Let me copy that over here. And I know I'm going over time a little bit here. Sorry about that. If you need to go, okay. No hard feelings. But I'll be done in like a couple more minutes. So over here, this was choice C, and I'm going to show you why this is wrong. Okay. So all viruses require a host to replicate. COVID-19 requires a host to replicate. Therefore, COVID-19 is a virus. It's hard to see the flaw of the logic here with the virus and all these examples. Let's change virus to birds. Okay, and instead of saying host to replicate, we say all birds have wings. Okay, all birds have wings, and they do, right? All birds have wings. COVID-19 requires a host to replicate. So instead of saying COVID-19, I need another example, right? So instead of birds, we'll say bees. Okay, it says require a host to replicate. That means it's the second part of the sentence, right? So bees have wings, right? Therefore, bees are what? How do I end the sentence here?
Birds.
Birds, right? And that obviously is flawed, right? That kind of logic doesn't work, right? So that's why this is not correct, right? Because that's not what the conclusion said. The conclusion, the general statement does not say anything that requires, the general statement does not say anything that require a host to replicate is a virus. That's not what it says, right? It says all virus requires a host to replicate, right? The order matters. Do you understand? Right? It's like saying all birds have wings, but then not the other way around, right? Not everything that has wings is a bird, right? Do you understand that? So the correct answer is A. Okay, A is the only example here that's showing deductive reasoning. Okay, so thank you so much all for coming to class today. I know that I'm the first class, right, of your entire program, I think, since today is the start of semester. So I hope you had learned something and you found class to be somewhat useful. And I'll see all of you on Wednesday, 8:30. Again, this is going to be posted on eCentennial, the recording. If you have any question at all, please feel free to email me. You enjoy the rest of your day. Okay, have a good one, guys. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye, sir. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.